When Star Ocean: The Divine Force was first announced in October of 2021, I was actually pretty darn surprised. And that's because the previous title in the franchise, Integrity and Faithlessness, was widely viewed as a flop, and it was tough times for developer Tri-Ace afterward. For a while, it wasn't even clear whether the company would shelve the series for good or not. But now that it's been out for a while, I thought I'd give Star Ocean: The Divine Force a true try and see if it managed to capture some of the essence of the old Star Ocean games, and if it truly represented a step forward for the series. In this video, I'm going to give you my impressions of just about every aspect of the game, which is now out for PS4, PS5, Steam, and Xbox platforms. But before I do that, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more retro gaming and RPG content. At the beginning of the game, you choose between two protagonists, Raymond and Laeticia, and having this choice really reminded me of the way Star Ocean: The Second Story worked. The two storylines sometimes play out in different places, and the two are in different locations in many parts of the game, but the overarching story is generally the same. As far as the story itself goes, the captain of a merchant vessel named Raymond, who has a killer mullet by the way, gets separated from his crew when his vessel gets gunned down by a pan-galactic battleship. After escaping on a pod, he lands on the underdeveloped planet of Aster 4, where he's immediately caught up in a struggle between kingdoms. It's there where he meets Laeticia, the princess of one of them. He agrees to help her in the fight against their adversaries in the Vale Empire in exchange for assistance finding his stranded fellow crew members. When you dive right into Star Ocean: The Divine Force, the first thing you'll notice is that the whole combat system deviates a lot from the previous Star Ocean games. This is because instead of an action RPG hybrid where you select combat commands, this one embraces a full action style that will be familiar to you if you play games like Dark Souls and Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's a much more free-roaming system, and the transition between traveling and getting into battles is virtually seamless, if that makes sense. The battles feature a chain combo system where you expend AP to perform attacks. You can assign 3 combat skills to square, triangle, and circle buttons, and pressing a single button in succession unleashes a several-step combo. There's a pretty good variety of special attacks you can acquire over time, and I liked how they were specific to each character. In addition, you can also assign passive skills to your characters to assist them in battle once you unlock them. The Divine Force also revives the blindside system from Star Ocean: The Last Hope, which allows you to dominate enemies by catching them from behind. So if you manage to strike them while their eyes are turned away from you, you'll temporarily stun them and your characters can wail away at them easily. If speedy clearing is your thing, this combat system will be refreshing compared to a lot of the turn-based or quasi-turn-based games, but it just didn't do it for me. Even though the damage you do to enemies is still present in the form of numbers, I feel that that's one of the only factors that make the combat RPG-like at all. I know this kind of combat style is just the way things are in modern gaming, but I'm really not a big fan of that decision. I think it'll just end up alienating much of the fan base, though I do admit it might draw a few new fans in as well. I do have to admit though, the skills system is pretty fun. In this one you gain SP from battles just like in any other Star Ocean game, but you spend them on a skill tree that works a lot like the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X or the license board from Final Fantasy XII. By way of this mechanic, the player is given a lot of choice over how they want their character to develop. You can go for the combat or passive skills first, or you can build stats or resistances instead. Each of these choices involves significant risks that you'll need to account for, and the decisions feel like tangible ones. They actually have big effects on your characters. I also thought the way the game handles exploration and quick traveling was interesting, because early in the game the party discovers a robot-like being called the Duma, and its powers actually allow you to launch yourself forward across the battlefield. With the touch of a button, your character can traverse the map super quickly, but you can also use it to launch yourself vertically as well, and that's pretty useful for finding treasures and getting to certain areas. You can also use the Duma to score surprise attacks against enemies, so its usage is pretty versatile. You even obtain Duma shards throughout the game that allow you to upgrade the machine's capabilities and increase your power. And now for the game's cardinal sin, the text size. The text in Star Ocean: The Divine Force is so ridiculously small, it's hard to read if you're any distance away from your television at all, and there's no way to change it. This makes the game's text and menus almost unusable, and it really makes the experience a big drag. I originally started playing the game on my big screen television, but when I realized this issue, I was forced to switch to my computer monitor instead so I could actually see it. This problem is even more disappointing when you consider the fact that the text in Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness was super small too, and that attracted a lot of negative feedback as well. This issue is truly annoying, it's a total shame, and it makes the game semi-unplayable. Motoi Sakuraba is back on duty for the soundtrack, and it's absolutely huge. At 99 tracks, this is the biggest score in the history of the franchise, and it's actually of high quality too. It contains the same orchestrated style that will be familiar to you, with lots of strings and horns for all the story's dramatic moments. But I was pleased to see that there's some experimentation here too, in styles that I didn't know the composer was capable of. Endless Journey is a great example of this. It uses what sounds like a Spanish guitar and a flute of some kind, and it's probably one of my favorite tunes on the whole soundtrack. Unlike Integrity and Faithlessness, it doesn't reuse a ton of songs from the previous Star Ocean games either, and that was super refreshing as well. In the end, my opinions on Star Ocean: The Divine Force are pretty mixed. The combat system is great for fans of action games, but it won't do it for many fans of the older Star Ocean titles. The characters and story were interesting enough for me, especially toward the end of the game, and the themes and motif are exactly what I would have expected from a game in this franchise. The soundtrack and skill system are great, and traveling and exploration wasn't nearly as tedious as it is in many other games. Some people consider this a return to form for the series of sorts, and maybe in some ways it is. Over Integrity and Faithlessness, I think it certainly is. But I can't really say it is for me. In my mind, it's a far better game than Integrity and Faithlessness, but I'll take the first 4 mainline Star Ocean games over this one any day of the week. So what did you think about Star Ocean: The Divine Force? How do you think it ranks compared to the other games in the Star Ocean series? Let me know in a comment below. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell for more retro gaming content. Big shout out, as always, to my Patreon patrons and YouTube members. If you want early access to the videos I produce and other perks like they receive, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a Patreon patron or via the YouTube Join feature.